Sports. I've always known this is where I was meant to be. From the first time I watched a game on TV, hearing the broadcasters bring the action to life, I felt something inside of me. Excitement. I was blown away. I don't know why, but I thought it was the coolest job in the world. As a little kid, I wanted to tell those stories and be a voice in sports broadcasting. Becoming a sports broadcaster, that's always been the dream. But the path to get there, it's not as simple as one kid would think. Little me never could have predicted that life would throw challenges at me, ones that would test me in ways no child could ever imagine. But now, here I am, ready to call this game. While the world watches this game unfold, it's my story they're about to hear, and I'm calling every play.
Hi, my name is Corey.
I was born at CMC Hospital in Scranton, Pennsylvania on July 3rd, 2002 at 11:40 a.m. I weighed in at 4 pounds 12 ounces, and my birth marked the start of something special, or at least that's how I like to think of it. I can imagine I was ready to tackle life as a newborn baby. Better yet, I was happy to be the center of attention. But that dream was short-lived. A minute later, my twin brother Kevin was born. The dreaded 11:41 a.m. I guess Kevin didn't want me to get all of mom and dad's attention. Just like that, I went from being an only child to having a lifelong partner in crime. I grew up in Jessup, Pennsylvania, a little town of about 4,500 people. Kevin and I lived in a ranch-style home with our parents, Cindy and Jeff, and I still call it home 22 years later. I can only imagine what was going through their minds when they brought home not one, but two newborn babies. It was probably something like, how the heck are we going to do this? But if anyone was up for the challenge, it was them. And I'd say they did a pretty good job. Like in sports, my parents were the perfect teammates, like Kobe and Shaq or LeBron and D. Wade. They knew how to balance the load. If my mom was giving us a bath, my dad would make dinner. If my dad was outside shoveling snow, my mom tended to us. No matter what, we always had one of them by our side. And they weren't just raising two kids, they were working together to build a family. While my parents worked as a team, they also had their own ways of showing love to Kevin and me. My mom always had a softer tone. She was the nurturer, the one who listened when we needed to talk. Whether it was comforting us when we were sick or hugging us just because, she was a steady presence, always ready to provide warmth and reassurance. She also always made sure that one of us was never excluded. If she asked me about my day in preschool, she made sure Kevin had his moment too, always reminding us that her love and attention were never divided, but always enough for both of us.
And where do you live?
My dad was always involved with us and brought the fun. He wasn't the type to send us outside to play while he stayed in. He was the one outside playing catch until his arm was about to fall off. He would chase us around the living room until we ran out of energy. Kevin and I had a blast in those moments, even if Kevin didn't vocalize it and I made sure everyone knew how much fun we were having. Like my mom, my dad ensured we got equal attention when playing. He made sure I got the same number of passes and, of course, the same number of burnouts as Kevin.
Sorry, bud.
And if one of us fell or got hurt from playing too hard, he would stop everything to make sure we were okay. To him, having fun with us was just as important as taking care of us. Kevin was the quiet brother. He didn't say much, but when he expressed his love, he meant it. Despite not being very talkative, I always knew he cared about me deeply. He was my partner in crime. We were inseparable. From the very beginning, we did everything together. Whether we were hanging out or playing outside, we rarely spent time apart. I think our time together made him feel comfortable and allowed him to open up more. I'm truly grateful to have had him by my side from the start. So that just leaves me. What was I like as a kid? Well, let's just say I was a handful. From a very young age, I've always used my voice. If I was excited, everybody knew. I would raise my voice, point, and wave my hands just to get everyone's attention. I made sure everyone heard me if I had something to say. Unfortunately, my message didn't always get across because I was speaking the Corey language. Fortunately though, as I got older, I picked up on English and never looked back. If I was upset, you bet everybody knew. I would whine, raise my voice. Let me just get to the point. I talked a lot. So much so that when I look back, I wonder, when did my battery ever run out? God bless my parents. But what I didn't know then was, my voice was truly a gift. One that would eventually lead me to something even bigger. I just didn't realize it yet.
Corey's telling me.
The play-by-play.
Say yay!
My love for sports began before I even understood what sports were. At just 4 years old, ice hockey entered my life. I would sit with my dad, glued to the TV, watching National Hockey League games unfold before me. I'd try to pronounce the names of players, some nearly impossible for a kid. Alexander Ovechkin, Alexei Kovalev, Simone Gagne. Names that seemed like tongue twisters. Luckily for me, my dad was patient. He would say each name slowly, and I'd repeat it back until I got it right. I was a quick learner, and even though I didn't understand the rules of hockey yet, I was fascinated by the game. As I got older, my love for sports took on a life of its own. When I finally understood hockey and grew closer to the game, I became a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. I don't know if it was because I loved Penguins as a kid, my dad was a Penguins fan, or both. Regardless, hockey became my life, and so did the Penguins. Hockey was my obsession, sometimes even more than cartoons. I would tune in religiously to every game on TV. My dad even printed out the team's schedule for me every season, and I'd tape it to the refrigerator so I'd never miss a game. The excitement only grew, and that passion was cemented even further one Christmas when I was gifted my very own Penguins jersey from my parents and my first hockey stick from my Grandma Carol. That same year, I even got a knee hockey set, net, stick, and ball, which only fueled my love for the game even more. With these gifts, I felt like my life was complete.
Oh my God!
Like any kid would, I immediately put them to use. I played knee hockey for hours, imagining I was a goalie making split saves, diving across the floor to stop imaginary shots. I even created my own fictional hockey league, completed with teams, players, and full seasons that played out in my living room. Sometimes I didn't even have a stick. I just wanted to play. On top of that, my dad even made a net out of PVC pipe, and I played outside for hours. I finally felt like a real hockey player. In addition to feeling like a hockey player, I started gravitating towards certain Pittsburgh players. Guys like Evgeny Malkin, Marc-Andre Fleury, and of course, Sidney Crosby. Crosby was my hockey idol. When I watched other hockey players, I would compare their game to Sid's because I thought he was otherworldly. I don't know what it was. I was just drawn to him. Maybe it was his crafty playmaking ability, his speed, or his hand-eye coordination. To me, he was the full package of a star hockey player.
On the boards, but Crosby digs it out, tries the feed. Gensel knocked out of the air. Crosby, unbelievable goal! He flipped it up to himself and then into the back of the net.
Every time I watched the Penguins play, I wasn't just cheering from the couch. I was living every moment with them. Sometimes I was cheering too much that I'd give myself headaches. Talk about passion. Speaking of moments, their 2009 Stanley Cup run was the first time I saw my team become champions, and the feeling was indescribable. Marc-Andre Fleury's game-saving stop against the Detroit Red Wings to clinch the Stanley Cup is forever engraved in my mind. The joy I felt knowing that my team and fellow Penguins fans had reached our goal was unlike anything else. That moment made me feel even more connected to the team and the sport I had come to love. While being a Penguins fan strengthened my love for hockey, a light switch flipped in my head. Once I started paying attention to the NHL as a whole, I realized that it wasn't just the excitement of the game or the Pittsburgh Penguins that drew me into the sport. It was the broadcasters who gave me that euphoric feeling. Becoming a Penguins fan opened my eyes to the voices behind the action. That's when I discovered Mike "Doc" Emrick.
Shot from Anisimov, and another shot is kicked away.
The moment I heard his voice calling hockey games on NBC, something clicked inside of me. I was instantly drawn to him. His voice was so unique. I had never heard anyone sound like him or talk like him. He had a way of making every moment sound exciting and was a master at his craft. I guess you could say a true wordsmith. My favorite Doc Emrick moments that solidified my love for him were his broadcasts during the playoffs. His commentating during the Stanley Cup playoffs can never be replicated. The intensity in his voice, the way he captured the chaos, the drama, and the emotion of every game, it was unmatched. He had an incredible way of making you feel like you were right there in the arena, living and breathing every shift. After watching Doc countless times, his playoff broadcast produced some of my favorite moments.
Putting all their energy to this game, both teams. Off the tie-up, it is fair, but it came back to Yandel. Drive by Girardi and a save. Rebound, score! Step on! In overtime, the Rangers move on to Tampa. That one came off Stallberg. It's Schultz working it back in deep. Fresh from the bench, it's Crosby. Crosby on Kunitz, a shot. Penguins win it! And they go to the final!
Listening to him during the playoffs made me love hockey even more. I wanted to bring his passion and tell stories like him, and I dreamed of making fans feel the way he made me feel. When I played knee hockey in my living room, I tried to sound like Doc. The cadence, the vocabulary. I did my best impression of him. He was and still is the reason I am who I am today. Thank you, hockey, for gifting me Doc Emrick. With him in my life, I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like Doc. My love for sports didn't stop at hockey. As I got to elementary school, I started to appreciate other sports. It was like a domino effect. When my parents encouraged me to stay active, I discovered a love for basketball and baseball. For baseball, I played in the Babe Ruth Little League with my brother. I was a right-handed batter who played first base, but was also one of the few lefty throwers on my team. While I wouldn't have blown away any scouts, I was a solid baseball player. But if any scouts are listening, when I got a little older, I did hit an inside the park home run. I guess you passed up on me. Just saying. As for basketball, I played for the Valley View Cougars, my school district's team. I was a solid shooting guard and loved taking three-pointers and pull-up jumpers. My friends still tell me today that I was the lefty Kyle Korver. Take that for what it is.
Yes! Kyle Korver with his fifth from downtown.
What I loved most about both of these sports was the team aspect. My coaches taught me to be selfless and work with my teammates to accomplish our goals. I made a lot of friends during this time and started embracing my identity as an athlete. Playing baseball and basketball made me feel even more connected to sports because rather than just watching them, I was now playing like the athletes I saw on TV. This was the happiest I had ever been in my life. But as my love for sports grew, I had no idea that my life was about to change in a way I never saw coming. up to this point, my childhood was as normal as any kid could hope for. I had a lot of friends, and my brother and I spent our days playing outside, hanging out, and participating in sports with our friends. I had no worries or cares in the world. My naivety blocked out any problems around me and allowed me to enjoy just being a kid. But things slowly started to change, and I didn't even realize it. After finishing second grade in June 2011, when I was 8 years old, I started feeling extremely thirsty every day. No matter how much I drank, my thirst was never satisfied. My need for fluids only got worse. I went from drinking a bottle of water a day to finishing entire pitchers from the fridge at a time. As a kid, again, I didn't think much of it. I was more frustrated than anything that my thirst never seemed to go away. By July 2011, the excessive thirst worsened. In addition, I constantly had to use the bathroom and felt incredibly fatigued. I went from being full of energy and excited to do things to barely having the motivation to get off the couch. For my 9th birthday, I didn't want to do anything. I was happy to get cake and presents, but after the celebration, I just wanted to be left alone. My parents started noticing my lack of energy and struggled to figure out what was wrong. They weren't sure if it was just the summer heat draining me or if something more serious was going on. The tipping point finally came in the form of weight loss. Despite eating more than usual, I was rapidly losing weight. I started to worry, but as a kid, you never think it could be something serious. My parents, however, knew something was wrong. They noticed I was looking skinnier and immediately scheduled a doctor's appointment. I had blood work done right away, and when the results came in, time seemed to stop. My doctor called and told my mom to get me to the hospital immediately. My blood sugar level was over 800. For context, a normal range is between 80 and 120. This was life-threatening, especially for a 9-year-old. My doctor told my mom he was shocked I wasn't in a diabetic coma. In a state of panic, my mom quickly packed a dinner for me and drove nearly 2 hours to Janet Weiss Hospital in Danville, Pennsylvania, and checked me in. My dad stayed home to look after my brother. When we arrived at the hospital, I was weighed and saw that I had lost 11 pounds. I felt sick and looked like skin and bones. After getting blood work, I was placed in a wheelchair and wheeled into my room. The whole time, I cried to my mom in my room saying, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die," because I finally realized that something was seriously wrong with me. On July 25th, 2011, I was officially diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disorder in which the body's immune system mistakenly attacks and destroys the insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas. It usually develops in children, teens, and young adults, but it can occur at any age. According to the American Diabetes Association, 2 million Americans have type 1 diabetes, including about 304,000 children and adolescents. Additionally, 1.2 million Americans are diagnosed with diabetes every year. I never thought I'd be part of those statistics, but my world was turned upside down at 9 years old. In the hospital, I had to process so much foreign information and adjust to my new reality. I had endless blood work done, had meetings with doctors, and learned that daily insulin injections would now be a part of my life. Finally, after 3 days, I went home. Seeing my brother and my dad and sleeping in my own bed felt like the best thing in the world. For a brief moment, I forgot that I had diabetes. However, I went to sleep unaware that the next morning would mark the beginning of a completely new way of life. The first year was tough. I stepped away from sports entirely, constantly checked my blood sugar, and relied on my mom for insulin injections before every meal. But beyond the physical struggles, the hardest part was feeling different. At birthday parties, I was embarrassed to take my shots in front of others. I felt like I stuck out in a way I never had before. I just wanted to be a normal kid, to grab a slice of pizza without worrying about injections or blood sugar levels. Even outside of birthday parties, I felt isolated. My friends could just eat whenever they wanted. For me, I had to plan every meal around my injections. I hated the constant reminders that I wasn't like everyone else. No matter how much I tried to ignore it, diabetes demanded my attention 24/7, and for a long time, I struggled to accept that. Throughout my first year with type 1 diabetes, I encountered many challenges, but the most significant was feeling like my dreams were slipping away. I began to believe that my condition would prevent me from ever becoming a sports broadcaster. The daily struggles made me think it would be impossible to manage both my health and my passion. I even considered never going back to playing sports, thinking that if I removed everything extra from my life, I could focus solely on keeping my sugar levels under control. In other words, I was willing to abandon my dreams and the things I loved if it meant I didn't have to feel anxious anymore. However, my parents and my doctor reassured me, and it was a shift in perspective that helped me accept my diagnosis. My doctor told me during a moment when I was feeling particularly down, "You are not a diabetic kid. You're just a kid that happens to have diabetes." In other words, the disease didn't have to define me. I could still be my true self and live a full life with diabetes. That perspective completely changed my outlook. From that moment on, I started to embrace my condition, and I finally felt the confidence to be myself. Nothing was going to stop me anymore, and life got better. In the summer of 2012, after a year of injections, I transitioned to a diabetic insulin pump, which was a game changer for me. An insulin pump is a small device that delivers insulin continuously through a thin tube inserted under my skin. The tube stays in for 3 days before being replaced. The pump mimics the pancreas's natural function, allowing for more flexibility in managing my blood sugar levels. This meant fewer injections, but it also required constant monitoring and adjustments to ensure I was getting the right amount of insulin throughout the day. The insulin pump was a lifesaver. It gave me the confidence to play sports again. That summer, I returned to baseball and enjoyed every minute of it. While I had to protect my pump when playing, I no longer had to worry about constantly poking myself with needles. The pump handled the calculations and did the work for me. I also got back into basketball, which brought me so much joy. But most importantly, my dreams of being a sports broadcaster felt possible again. I immersed myself in sports once more, and for the first time, I felt like I had control over my life. Finally, life with diabetes felt normal. The pump preserved my health and saved me mentally and emotionally. It gave me my life back, and I've been wearing it ever since, going on 13 years now. As I got into middle school, sports consumed my life just as it did when I was a toddler. For Halloween, you bet I dressed as an ESPN broadcaster. Thanks to my dad for making me a press pass and getting me a headset. But during this time, I started to gravitate towards sports broadcasters outside of hockey. While I didn't immediately connect with them, the universe has a funny way of introducing things at the right time. I found myself drawn to guys like Kevin Harlan.
NFL, if the Chiefs win and New England loses, the Chiefs will be the 2 seed. They'll get the bye and they'll have a home game the next weekend.
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games.
Mike Breen.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry!
And Gus Johnson.
Buchalter right next to him. Orton pumps again to the sideline. Batted up. Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline. Can they catch him? Stokely! Wow! Touchdown! Denver! Unbelievable!
A little later, I stopped playing baseball and basketball and became interested in golf. I played for a couple of years, but eventually stopped because my focus had shifted entirely to sports broadcasting. I was fortunate to get opportunities that solidified my passion. For a middle school project, I visited a local radio station where my mom's friend worked. I sat in on one of his shows and was amazed at how he ran the program. I was in heaven. I'm grateful to my mom for having that connection and making that day happen. Additionally, for a couple of seasons, I worked in the press box for my brother's baseball team, reading the lineups for home games and keeping score. This was my first time speaking to an audience, my first taste of broadcasting. I was in my element and couldn't wait for the next home game because I enjoyed it so much. By the time I reached high school, diabetic technology had advanced even further. I started wearing a continuous glucose monitor, CGM, along with my pump. I still wear one to this day. The sensor is inserted into my tricep and lasts for 10 days. It also sends real-time blood sugar readings to my pump and any electronic device, eliminating the need for constant finger pricks before meals. In addition, I upgraded to a newer insulin pump that could automatically deliver insulin if it sensed my sugar was rising. These advancements became my security blanket, and my life as a sports broadcaster became far less daunting. If anything, I was excited to graduate high school and embrace whatever challenges college threw my way. In the summer of 2021, I enrolled at Marywood University to pursue a degree in sports media. Choosing Marywood was the best decision of my life. I didn't feel like I had to compete with anyone for broadcasting experience. The opportunities naturally came my way.
Which camera is it down?
The first game I ever called was for Marywood's baseball team, and to be honest, it's one I'd rather forget. I was not myself. I was nervous calling my first game alone, and more than anything, I was worried about whether my blood sugar would stay in control.
An interesting one today. So Marywood will be taking the field first. I'm Corey Ayub. Yeah.
That broadcast was a wake-up call. Afterward, I started second-guessing whether I had chosen the right major. I was anxious about this dream becoming a reality. Yes, I was getting closer to it, but I was still diabetic. And even though I had equipment that made my life easier, I just kept thinking, how am I going to juggle college, call these games, and handle all this adult stuff while managing this disease? But then I remembered the mantra I've lived by since my diagnosis. This disease doesn't define me. So as difficult as it was, I embraced it and made a plan for myself when calling games. If I am doing a broadcast, I make sure to have a meal beforehand so I'm not hungry and my sugar has a better chance of staying stable. Before leaving for the game, I pack extra snacks and juice boxes in my backpack just in case my sugar drops. During the broadcast, I keep an eye on my blood sugar readings on my laptop. If it's dropping, I eat something. If it's high, my pump delivers insulin. This system not only helped me stay organized, but also allowed me to take a step back from constantly worrying about my diabetes. I barely had to lift a finger to manage it, which gave me the confidence to focus on my job as a sports broadcaster. With that weight lifted, I felt ready to call any game.
Olivia Chulo, double-double last game, 20 and 12. That was an angry block. Might be daring her to shoot. Wow. That's been the story of this half, is the extra pass.
Lucky for me, life had more in store for me. I became the go-to color commentator for basketball whenever I was available, and the basketball broadcasts were nominated for a student Emmy for the first time. Well, we didn't win, but hey, Pittsburgh was nice. I made friends with people in my major and joined Marywood's first sports podcast, He Knows Ball, with some of those friends. I couldn't have been more grateful for these opportunities, and I was achieving all of this while managing a disease I once thought would hold me back. Life has a way of surprising you. And now, here I am, present day, I'm 22 years old, nearly 14 years into my journey with diabetes, and about to graduate from Marywood with a bachelor's in sports media. If you told 9-year-old me that I would be one step closer to becoming a sports broadcaster and that diabetes will become easier to manage, I would have thought you were crazy. To Mom, Dad, and Kevin, thank you for always being there through the good and the bad. Thank you for supporting me when diabetes felt overwhelming and for being my rock. To my childhood friends, thank you for being another pillar of strength in my life. Your support over the years has meant everything to me. To everyone I've met at Marywood, thank you for making me feel like I made the right choice to come here and for accepting me for who I am. Most importantly, thank you for pushing me toward this career and helping me become the best version of myself. And I leave you with this. To anyone out there struggling with something, whether you're a future broadcaster or not, just know you're not alone. You have people who will support you. And don't let your condition, whatever it may be, define you. Embrace it, and you might just become a stronger version of yourself in the process. Just take it day by day. Play by play.
I wish my words were sweet. They grow like lemon trees. The less I say, the better. I'm coming clean, and I don't know why I do it to you. How many times can I be wrong? I've been down for way too long. How many tries can I fit in a song? Hoping you still sing along. Bye bye bye. Bye bye bye. Now you're crying in a car. How did I get so far? You know I don't mean it, but what does that even mean?
Kiss. Say end of school.
End of school.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.